We are live on Facebook and YouTube, and I am so excited that we got Dr. Lee Cowden out of retirement. Well, he's not really technically out of retirement. You never retire anyway.
Oh.
Anyone who says that they're going to retire are delusional, because there's probably more work that you do after. You never retire from doing the work of good people. And so today we're going to be talking about the different ways that we can boost our immune system during difficult times, or how does boosting our immune system help us in every aspect of our life. And we have Dr. Lee Cowden, MD, who is here to guide us through this process, guide us through the awareness of this process, and tell us some good news of this retired guy and what he's been doing lately with the Medical Freedom Pact. So fasten your seatbelts, because we're going to learn and grow together. Dr. Cowden, it's time to dance.
All right, let's dance.
The Lillian McDermott Show.
We love, we fear, bridges we burn, we make mistakes, then we live and learn. When life gets tough, and it seems like your best ain't good enough. If you're in need of hope, you know where I'll be right here. Right here, and when you need a friend, you can count on me. I'll be right here, waiting for
you. This is the place you can always turn to when you need a friend. The Lillian McDermott Show. To reach out to Lillian, visit her on the web at whenyouneedafriend.com. Now let's all learn together. Here's Lillian McDermott.
Hello, my listening and viewing friends on Facebook and YouTube, and later on podcast and BitChute. I am so glad that we are able to meet each other on the air on this beautiful, best day ever. And for those of you who are tuning in to the Lillian McDermott radio show / classroom for the first time, please know I've been waiting for you. This is a safe place where you can go to when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide alternative ways to heal, and it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening, as well as my viewing friends, will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. Now, it seems like it's been a nightmare. People turning against each other, fear, fighting, accusations, mistrust, misinformation. There is so much that we don't know what we don't know. We have been so afraid of germs. And when you walk next to a person, you might think, they could be contaminating me and not even know it. We have all become germaphobes that can't even stand closer than 6 feet apart. So, are you thinking that the next person that's going to walk next to you is going to make you sick? Well, this is the class for you, freedom, because we've been talking about building our immune system. And so today, Dr. Lee Cowden, I'm telling you, this man is an incredible physician. He is the physician of physicians. He's gone around the world teaching other doctors and how to use not only their intuition, but the tools to help the individual capture their healing potential through so many different ways. He's like Inspector Gadget. He has every gadget you can imagine to make a person feel better. Dr. Lee Cowden. He is in Texas, and he is in our hearts because he is just recently announced in the classroom. He announced that he was retiring, but guess what? You just don't retire from the work of God. And since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am so grateful that Dr. Lee Cowden is a really good dancer, and he's here to do just that. Welcome, Dr. Cowden, to the Lillian McDermott Radio Show Classroom. Oh, you for some reason you're muted on your end. It's not on our end. There you go.
Okay, good. All right, now I'm on.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Good to be on here with you today.
Doesn't dancing make you just lift up any burden that we have?
Yeah, yep. Helps to get the lymph flowing.
The lymph flowing, and it helps build our immune system. So you were a great teacher today on how to dance in the classroom. So share a little bit about your background, Dr. Cowden. It's been like a year since you've been that you've taken this break, and now you're out and about. And so share a little bit about what's going on with you, what you've been doing, and what you've been researching now to share today.
Yeah. Until September of 2019, I was working about 50 hours a week for patients and about 50 hours a week in the education. And that would probably be okay, working 100 hours a week, maybe when I was 20 years younger, but probably not a good idea at my present age. And so I was teaching and seeing patients out in Phoenix, Arizona, and I developed a set of symptoms that I'd never collectively experienced before. I developed brain fog, profound fatigue, shortness of breath, palpitations, and figured out that my heart rate was up to 140 beats a minute. And all of that was coming because of my exposure to 5G electromagnetic frequencies. And I was able to get through the next couple of days and make it back home. And I thought I would recover quickly out in my pristine environment in West Texas, but I didn't. And I thought, my goodness, why am I not recovering? And I figured out that it was because I was getting zapped from the satellites above us. And so as soon as I got a metallized cloth canopy hung up over my bed, then I started recovering.
Wow. So the canopy helped you?
Yep. So the canopy shielded me. It's like a Faraday cage, shielded me from the electromagnetic pollution of the 5G satellites that were flying overhead. And I started getting better. But during that time, I decided that I was probably supposed to make a choice about what to do in the future. And so I decided that even though it was the lower paying of the two jobs, that I would focus purely on teaching and no longer be seeing patients one-on-one. And it's been a good thing. And probably if I had been trying to see patients, I wouldn't have been able to see patients because of all the craziness of the government, on this present
difficult times.
Difficult time, yes.
Yeah.
So anyway, I've learned some really interesting things about the symptoms that were going on, which I've shared with other doctors, and that's helped other patients. So it hasn't been all for naught. I've learned that the atrial fibrillation that I had was in part because of a little roundworm that was growing in my heart and in my brain and in my body.
A roundworm?
Roundworm, yeah. And inside that roundworm were a variety of Lyme-related bugs, Borrelia, Bartonella, Babesia, Ehrlichia, etc. And so anytime the worm pooped or died, it deposited those other creatures back in my body.
No.
And so I was never able to get rid of the inflammation in the heart.
How did you find that?
Well, I was watching a video from Dr. Alan McDonald, and he was talking about this little roundworm that he found in the cerebrospinal fluid of 10 out of 10 MS patients, 5 out of 5 patients with Alzheimer's dementia, and 4 out of 4 patients with glioblastoma multiforme primary brain cancer. And I thought, my goodness, that's pretty prevalent, pretty common. And since I was having that brain fog, I checked, and my wife was having headaches. I said, well, let's check us. So I checked my wife, and she had it, and I checked me, and I had it. So we started doing the treatment to get rid of the roundworm, and we both started doing better. My wife's headaches have gone to a tiny fraction of what they used to be, and the brain fog went away in my case.
Wow. And how do you test for that?
Energetically. Or you can do an open biopsy of your brain.
And okay, so it's a brown worm.
A round
worm. Sorry, I'm going to say round, but B came out. A round worm, and they were able to capture it. Did they capture this after the individuals died? Is that how they knew?
Yeah, so Dr. McDonald got his samples from a pathology bank. So they sent him samples of cerebral spinal fluid, and he centrifuged it and examined it under the microscope and found these little roundworms. Now, these are almost identical to the little roundworms that Dr. Eva Sapi identified back about 5 or 8 years ago. And she called hers the microfilaria. She found the microfilaria in the gut of about 20 or 30% of all the ticks that had Borrelia in their gut up in the Connecticut area. So apparently these are oftentimes transmitted at the same moment as a person gets Borrelia and other Lyme-related creatures.
Well, you are the Lyme disease expert, and you have trained so many doctors. One of them is Dr. Richard Horowitz, who's been a regular in the classroom as well. And he has done great things with the what you have taught him. And so, gosh, this is a totally different class that we can do together, Dr. Cowden. I'd love to explore this. But today we're going to be talking about building our immune system during difficult times, how to boost it. And so I just thought that for those of you who have any questions, especially about the roundworm, you can ask any questions that you have, type in a Q, and write the question after that. You can also text me if you don't want people to see who you are. You can text me at 407-373-5959, whether you're on Facebook Live or YouTube. You're welcome to do that throughout the broadcast, and maybe afterwards we can ask your questions that you might have. So let's talk. You already shared about the EMFs, the electromagnetic radiation exposure. What else can we do? I mean, you said you got a canopy. Are those canopies expensive? I just had somebody text me. As a matter of fact, it was either yesterday or today, asking me about EMFs. And I thought, I knew we were going to talk about it a little bit. And we've talked about a little bit with Lloyd Burrell and other people. But some of them say, if you build your immune system, you have less response to the 5G. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, it goes both directions. If you have a lot of heavy metals in your body, then the heavy metals act like antennas to pick up the ambient electromagnetic pollution that's in your environment. Mm-hmm. So then the more those electromagnetic pollutions adversely affect your cells. There's little electromagnetic receptors on every cell of the body, and those regulate what goes on inside that cell. So if it's an immune cell, it regulates, can have a negative effect on the immune system. If it's a liver cell, a negative effect on the liver. If it's a brain cell, negative effect on the brain. So, and it's not just the 5G. I mean, that's the next big monster that's around the corner, because they put several dozen of those satellites into orbit already, and they have approval from the U.S. government to put 20,000 satellites into orbit, broadcasting 5G down upon us. So there will be no safe place on the face of the globe to protect yourself. You'll have to buy a canopy at that point if you don't want to be zapped during the night. The immune system can recover fairly well if you're protected from electromagnetic pollution during the night. Now, until they get a bunch more satellites up there, that means trying to turn off your Wi-Fi every night. Turn off the cell phone, put it in airplane mode. Turn off your cordless phone. Actually, you should never even use a cordless phone. You just sell that, on eBay or whatever. Get rid of it, and then get rid of all the other electromagnetic pollution that you can, whether that's the radio frequency burglar alarm systems or the radio frequency baby alarm systems or whatever. Wow. And get rid of all that stuff, because all that stuff is pounding you and making it impossible for your immune system to recover. One of the things that happens when you're exposed to electromagnetics during the night is that you don't get a release of melatonin. Melatonin is a hormone in the brain that helps to regulate all the other hormones of the body, and it's the most important antioxidant that the body makes. So it protects the brain from oxidant damage. So if you don't have enough melatonin, you get free radical damage of your brain and premature aging of your brain. But the other thing that happens with EMF during the night is that you get continual firing of your adrenal glands during the night, One of the things that's fired from your adrenal glands is cortisol, which is an immune suppressive hormone. And that's being fired off all night, suppressing your immune system all night. And the other thing that's happening is that you're firing off adrenaline from your adrenal glands. And the adrenaline is actually causing constriction of your blood vessels, restriction of oxygen delivery to the tissues, conversion of the tissues from aerobic metabolism to anaerobic metabolism, and then you form lactic acidosis. Lactic acidosis stimulates the growth of most bugs.
It stimulates the growth of most bugs. And that means that if we have bugs within us, they'll get bigger?
Yeah, they'll grow faster. Yeah. Now, we know this, that from research that was done in Switzerland, that mold and funguses grow faster whenever they're in an electromagnetic environment compared to inside of a Faraday cage. And they produce mycotoxins. Mycotoxins are the immune system suppressing and cancer causing chemicals that funguses produce. But those mycotoxins are produced at a rate of 600 times greater whenever you're in an electromagnetic field than when you're inside of a Faraday cage.
Wow.
Electromagnetically shielded environment.
So the way to build our immune system when it comes to 5G, you would suggest that we turn off our 5G at night so that we have that restful night's sleep?
Turn off all your electromagnetics that you can. If you live in an apartment and you open up your laptop and you see how many Wi-Fis you could connect to if you had their password, and let's say it's 8 or 10 or 15, I'm not sure how much good it really does you to turn off your own Wi-Fi. But if you live in a house in a neighborhood with lots of air, lots of land around your house, and you can lift your laptop open and you only get 1 or 2, then it's probably worthwhile turning off your Wi-Fi during the night so that you don't get zapped from your own Wi-Fi.
So, but what if you live in a condo or apartment and
then you want to get a canopy to shield
then you
your
want to
bed.
get a canopy. And how much are those canopies, Doctor?
They're about $1,000.
Holy moly. Okay, $1,000. Okay.
Yeah.
What
I mean,
about
you're-
grounding? Because I have a product called Ground Therapy. I have it in my Shop Now bag, and that keeps us grounded, and that takes away that inflammation from the body. What can you say about that when it comes to 5G?
Well, grounding, I think, does help a bit our bodies to be able to deal with all of the EMF that we're getting exposed to, but it's definitely not a panacea. Whenever an electromagnetic wave hits the receptor on the cell for that wave, then that stimulates the protein that goes through the cell membrane into the interior of the cell that then releases what we call second messengers. Cyclic AMP, cyclic GMP, and so on. And those second messengers have all kinds of other actions in the cell. And so, the grounding to the earth isn't going to fix that initial zap of the electromagnetic receptor on your cell surface.
Yes. Okay. Well, that's is there anything else that you want to say about 5G? I know this isn't a show on 5G or a class on 5G, but is there anything else that you would like to say about that?
Yes, we would be wise to get up in arms and demand that the government prove that 5G is safe before it's rolled out. That's called the precautionary principle. What the government's doing instead is that they're putting the 5G satellites up, they're putting the 5G antennas up throughout the neighborhoods without knowing what the outcome is going to be for the health. And so basically every human being on the planet is becoming an experiment. We're all guinea pigs. I guess we need to learn how to squeal.
Well, we've known that we are guinea pigs for a long time. So this is just one more thing.
Yeah, but enough people saying, no, we're not going to go through with this, to the Federal Trade Commission, to the Federal Communications Commission, to the FDA. Put in letters to your congressman, to your senators, to the president, to everybody that you can think of, and say, you haven't shown to me that this is safe, and you are potentially jeopardizing my health and the health of the people in my household, and it's not acceptable to me. I'm putting you on notice that I will bring legal action against you, whether you think you're protected by all of your participation of government or not.
Well, you know what? I want to hold that thought because I would say that kind of fits in with the Medical Freedom Pact that you're building, right?
Right.
That you could speak up for us as well.
Right.
Okay, so hold that thought because all of you, I want you to pay attention about this this new step that Dr. Lee Cowden is taking with this Medical Freedom Pact that is so important for all of us to get involved. I already registered, and I know that you will too. Okay, so let's talk about emotions because I've often said that fear is probably worse than the actual results of what may or may not happen in somebody's body.
Yeah. Fear causes a major outpouring of adrenal hormones. And, one of the hormones that is pumped out from the adrenal glands when a person's under fear is cortisol. And cortisol is powerfully immune suppressive. So that's a really bad idea. But also fear causes the outpouring of adrenaline from the adrenal glands, which then clamps down the blood vessels, restricts the oxygen delivery in the tissues, causes the tissues to go into anaerobic metabolism, causes the tissues to develop lactic acidosis, which makes a perfect growing media for the bacteria and the viruses and the funguses and so on. So, fear is a really bad thing. Now, people are frightfully fearful right now because of what they see going on around them. They think, I'm going to die, I'm going to get this bug and I'm going to die. But it doesn't have to be so. We know that there's a state in India called Kerala, Kerala, who has a tiny fraction of the number of deaths that we have in this country, even though the COVID, the illness started there before it started here. Okay, so just a month ago, we had 667 times the incidence of death per capita in this country as they did in Kerala. Okay,
Wow.
they've had a little spike in number of cases and deaths in the last month. But it's still about 300 times more death in this country than in that country. And this is an extremely poor state in India that does not have a lot of resources for testing or treatment. But they have something that's very unique. They have what they call ASHAs. ASHA is like a wellness coach, and there's one wellness coach equivalent for every 1,000 people. So if a person becomes ill, they call their ASHA and say, "This is what's going on with me. What do you think I should do?" And the ASHA says, "Well, you probably should drink more fluids, get some rest, take these herbs, take your homeopathic, and call me if you don't get better." And almost everybody gets better. Okay. A lot of people don't realize that that homeopathics do have a powerful effect. And Dr. Isaac Golden in Australia did a meta-analysis about homeoprophylaxis using homeopathy to prevent illness in 250 million patients.
Whoo!
250
Where
million.
can we find that study?
Just look up Isaac Golden in large homeoprophylaxis studies.
Okay.
250. It was published in May of 2019. So it was published in the American Journal of Homeopathic Medicine.
Okay.
And so that's the largest meta-analysis that I've been able to find anywhere, and it's with homeopathy.
Wow, that's awesome. Okay, so we're specifically talking about fear, but anger is also a subset.
Yeah.
Anger is sadness that's misdirected. And so those are the two things that I'm seeing more and more,
Yeah.
like people defriending each other, not listening to one another, calling each other names.
Yeah.
So do they both, are they like twin brothers and sisters?
No, they both have a really negative impact on the health, but by different mechanisms.
Okay.
Anger is held primarily in the liver and the gallbladder. The liver is the primary detox organ for the body. And if you have enough anger being held in the liver, then it doesn't detox the toxins that you get exposed to every day. So the toxins build up and create an environment that make it perfect for microbes to grow. And when the gallbladder gets filled up enough, it becomes paralyzed, and then you don't push out bile salts every time you eat a fatty meal, and then you can't digest the fats that are in the meal to absorb those into the body that you need, like the fat-soluble vitamins, A, E, D, K, and EPA. So those nutrients become lacking because of the anger that's built up. In the United States, it's not acceptable for a young man to express any emotion except anger. They're not allowed to show fear. They're not allowed to show sadness. They're not allowed to show any other emotion. Okay. And so every emotion that they feel has to be directed into anger. And guess what? They develop a lot of liver and gallbladder disease and a lot of inability to detox their body. And so that, plus the damage to the kidneys and the adrenal glands from the fear, and the damage to the immune system from the fear, creates a perfect storm, makes a perfect environment for a person to become ill.
And of course, putting a mask on their face while they're experiencing so much fear, will that magnify it even more?
It does. We know that the masks cause a retention of carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide builds up in the body and produces carbonic acid, and the tissues become more acidic and more conducive to the growth of microbes. So the mask on the face increases the probability that you will become infected.
Isn't it amazing?
Increases the probability that you will become infected.
See, but this is the information where people hear it and they say, that's BS, that's bunk, and that's where I have to step back and say, they weren't ready to hear it.
No, but there was an article published in the peer-reviewed literature on looking at masks for protection of people that had flu, influenza. And this was in 6,500 patients, 6,700 patients, a large number of patients. And they found that it had no benefit in preventing flu. Zero, no benefit. And so we're doing something that's going to likely harm us without any potential benefit. If the pore in a mask blown up with a microscope is that big, the virus is that big. Yeah. You think that virus is going to be stopped by that?
No, viruses are pretty stupid. They're smart enough. I always have this, remember the foghorn, leghorn, the dog that had the leash, and the rooster knew exactly how far the dog would go. That's how smart the viruses are, because they know how far they can go. They're entrained. And so that's a totally different, another.
Yeah, you give way too much credit to the viruses. The viruses have no intelligence. They have no ability to live at all unless they get inside of a human cell or an animal cell. They can't reproduce. They can't replicate. They can't exist as a species. So if we don't give them a good place to live, then they finally die out, and that's what we should be doing. We know that the many of the viruses are extremely heat sensitive. Mm-hmm. So if you live in a hot part of the country, go outside a lot during the day right now, and you'll protect yourself against viral illness.
Yeah.
If you don't live in a really warm part of the country, get yourself a sauna and get into the sauna every day. Okay, to basically mimic being outdoors.
And, and that is great advice. So that's a great way to build our immune system, is the heat, and to heat up our body. And mm-hmm. I remember you had mentioned, I believe it was you who had mentioned in the classroom, that when people get a fever, allow the body to burn the virus. That's the body's way of burning off the virus, killing the virus. Would you like to add any more about that, Dr. Cowden?
Fever is not a acetaminophen deficiency. It is not a drug deficiency. It is not. So don't even think about taking a drug when you get a fever. It has a purpose. God created the body to have a fever whenever we have illness for a purpose. It causes a dilation of the blood vessels, more blood flow into the tissues, more white blood cells into the tissues, an increase in the metabolism of the white blood cells, so they more rapidly chew up and destroy the microbes that are in the tissues. So, fever has a purpose. If you get to 105, you probably ought to take a bunch of clothes off and wipe your skin with lukewarm water and fan it off, evaporate it off, so you don't get above 105. But below 105, there is no harm to the body.
What about children?
Even children can tolerate to up to 104 very safely. With that, I don't think I've ever heard in my entire career of a child having a febrile seizure with 104 or less. If they get above 104, sometimes.
Great advice. Great advice. Okay, Dr. Cowden, let's continue on with the emotions. And so sometimes spirituality gets involved there. And we do a lot of classes on forgiveness, acceptance, and I had shared with you that we're going to do a Bible study with Dr. Lorraine Day, and it's so important to be hopeful. So what are some of these emotions and how can we boost those up? I know dancing is one of them.
Yeah. Well, we talked about the emotion of anger, but the counterpart to anger is the spiritual issue, unforgiveness. Now, you can become ill because of anger, or you can become ill because of unforgiveness, or you can become ill because of both. But in my opinion, everyone would be wise every night at bedtime before they go to sleep to close their eyes and visualize the faces of all the people that they're angry at and frustrated with, and make a choice to forgive them before they go off to sleep. If they feel that they need to shout at them for a little bit before they can get to the point where they can fully forgive them, then they should do that. Put the pillow over their face and shout into the pillow whatever they need to shout until there's nothing less to shout. And then when you're finished shouting, then you forgive.
Metaphorically, put the pillow on their face, right?
No, they do. Well, if they're concerned that their neighbors are going to hear them shouting at somebody.
Oh, put your pillow over your own face. Okay, not the face of the other person.
No, over your face, so your neighbor don't hear you shouting. They'll call the police and say this person needs to be thrown in the lockup. I know that she lives alone, but she's over there shouting at somebody.
I can see that happening.
Yeah. So anyway, so forgiveness needs to be done every night at bedtime, because if you don't, then it causes disease. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So we need to forgive, but if we want to be forgiven, we all fall short, and if we want to be forgiven by the Creator of the universe, we need to forgive others so that the Creator can make a choice then to forgive us. Now, the other part of spirituality that's so important is the power of love over fear. Okay. There's a verse in the Bible that says perfect love casts out all fear. Okay. And I found that to be true in my life. Now, if you're now boarded up in your house fearful of death, then probably you're going to have a weakened immune system. But if you can allow the love of the Creator to come into you there in your house and start pushing out of you the fear that's in you, and get to the point where there is no longer any fear, then all of a sudden you can become well because all you did was pray. Now, a lot of people think praying is about speaking, but it's a lot more about listening than it is about speaking. Okay, so about the only things we need to speak are, thank you, Creator, praise you, Creator. But in the Word says the Creator knows all of our needs and our wants and our wishes, so we don't have to say all that stuff. It's good to pray for other people that that obviously may not be praying for themselves or have anybody else praying for them. So pray for your enemies if you wish, but then get quiet, get still, and listen. That's the important part of praying. Praying is not so much about speaking, it's about listening. That's why we have only one mouth and two ears. Okay? So we need to listen at least twice as much as we speak. And what you're listening for is the words of the Creator. The words of the Creator can pop into your head as a thought, or it can end up in your chest or your abdomen, and you had a gut feeling or a heart feeling, and you think about it, you dwell on it, and the more you think about it or dwell on it, the more peace you get. That was the Creator communicating with you.
I had mentioned to you earlier for the I Am 99 group, and for those of you who haven't joined the I Am 99 group, this is uniting the 99% that are being controlled by the 1% of the 1%. And so one of the call to actions that we agreed upon is that at 5 o'clock, so 5 o'clock somewhere gives a new meaning to that. At 5 o'clock, we do the Ho'oponopono, which is the visualization of whoever it is that you need to forgive or you have anger with, or it's a beautiful prayer. And it starts with, I'm sorry. The second statement is, please forgive me. The third statement is, I love you, or thank you, depending on other people, but I love you. And the fourth statement is thank you. Some people get the last two. I don't know if there's a magical way of saying it. I would say that it tenderizes your own heart. And we send out this frequency. So I understand what you're talking about. And so I had mentioned to Dr. Cowden before the class, we got to do Ho'oponopono. And so that is something that, if you could do with anybody. And I have found that beautiful miracles happen when that occurs. When it tenderizes your heart, you realize that everybody has a part in what's happening. I have a part in what's happening in this world. And so I'm sorry for it. Please forgive me for my part or for the part that other people are having in there. I love you and thank you. So those are the things that I want to encourage all of you to do. So we got a couple of questions, Dr. Cowden, and I'm going back because we've already discussed these, but Susan has a question about the research and the author, and I'm assuming she's talking about the American Journal, Homeopathic Journal. The
homeopathic research was by Isaac Golden, ISAAC Golden, Golden, and it was in May 2019, American Journal of Homeopathic Medicine, and it was a study on homeoprophylaxis. So if you put those key pieces of information into a search window, you'll almost certainly have it come up.
Okay, so I hope that answers your question, Susan. And then we have on Facebook, I don't know if this is a question, I don't see the Q, but it's a statement. So Farron Canopy, or is it QI? Is that chi? What is QI? QI
QI is chi.
Chi. Home from Synergy Science. I don't know if they're asking which one's better. She says, she said, pray for me. I have 2 pole antennas near my house. So I don't know if this is a brand name. So
so on lessemf.com, they have some little graphics beside each of the pictures of canopies, and the graphic shows you how high frequency did they test and how much reduction in the frequency exposure did you get with that canopy. And so you want one that has as high a frequency reduction as much reduction as you can get for as high a frequency as you can get. Most of them don't even test beyond about 5 gigahertz, and the 5G is not 5 gigahertz. That's just the 5th generation. But the most common 5G frequency is 60,000 megahertz, or 660 gigahertz.
So that's what we want to look at. We want to look at how the frequency that it's been tested on, and we want to look for that 60,000.
Yeah. Well, there's not any out there yet like that. But you want to find one that goes as high as possible, like 4 gig. They've tested it to 4 gigahertz or 5 gigahertz or 6 gigahertz, and see how much reduction there is in they call it decibel reading of the noise from the electromagnetics at those high frequencies. Because if it trails off a lot, there in the last couple of gigahertz, then it's not going to be as good protection for your body.
Very good. Thank you very, very much. And so one more question from from YouTube. It's from Catalana. They said, why is no one talking about Morgellons fungus, which is very contagious?
Well,
Did I
yeah,
pronounce that correctly?
yeah,
We
Mor-
have a
Mor-
different topic, so I don't know if this falls into the topic that we're talking about.
well, yeah. I mean, people that have Morgellons usually have a weaker immune system, have more toxicity in their body. Usually they have Lyme disease. I don't think I've seen a patient with Morgellons that didn't also have Lyme disease. And by the way, Borrelia and Bartonella both produce chemicals that are immune suppressive. And we know also that many of the mycotoxins that are found in water damaged buildings are also immune suppressive. So if you have a combination of Borrelia and Bartonella and mold or fungus in your paranasal sinuses, then you're going to be a setup for getting exposed to Morgellons. Morgellons is hard to describe, but it's a microbe, possibly even man-made, that produces some little colored silicone filaments, and these usually come out through the skin like fibers or hairs. And so it's a very odd illness and torturing illness because these lesions are uncomfortable. They cause itch and pain and so on. And but I have found that if you have that condition, if you get rid of the mold or fungus in the paranasal sinuses by doing sinus irrigation, preferably with iodine, and you also swallow herbal antifungal agents while you're on a no sugar, no starch diet for 8 to 10 weeks, then that takes down the fungal load, which improves the immune system some. And then it's important to try to get rid of the Borrelia and the Bartonella. As I said at the beginning of the show, if you do have the little microfilaria, you won't be able to completely get rid of the little Borrelia and Bartonella bacteria that are living inside of the worms. So you have to get rid of the worms before you get rid of the bigger bugs.
Amazing.
The smaller bugs.
Amazing. So maybe we can do, a future class. I'm going to get you out of retirement, Dr. Cowden. So that today's purpose is to talk about building our immune system during difficult times. And so perhaps maybe after the class, if we still have some time and you still have some questions, then we can address those. I know I want to be very courteous to Dr. Cowden for his time. So the next question, the next one is sleep and how it affects our immunity.
Yeah. Okay. So a lot of people stay up till 1 or 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and expect their immune system to stay good. They're dreaming. They're fantasizing, because that's not going to be the case. At 9 p.m., your endocrine system starts detoxifying itself if and only if you're in bed in a pitch dark black room with not very much EMF like Wi-Fi, and you're asleep. But if you're not asleep under those circumstances in a pitch dark black bedroom by 9 o'clock, then your endocrine system doesn't recover. And if your endocrine system doesn't recover, your immune system plays out. Okay. Now, at 11 o'clock is when the gallbladder detoxifies itself, and then at 1 a.m. is when the liver detoxifies itself. And you need to be asleep during all those times, during your endocrine time, 9 to 11, between your gallbladder time, 11 to 1 a.m., and your liver time from 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. If you can make it to 3 a.m., then it's okay to get up then. So if you got to bed at 9, then you've gotten six hours of sleep, and you probably get up at 3 a.m. and do fine. The lungs detoxify themselves at 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. And then after that is the large intestine. And both of those actually do pretty well, even if you don't get optimum sleep during the time that you're going through those detox, because most of the other organ systems of the body, you're usually not going to be asleep. Your heart is between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. Most people are not asleep at that time of the day unless they take a 2-hour nap right after early lunch.
Okay, so you said 9. I've always heard 10 and 2. that the 10 and 2 are the bewitching hours. That's where the scrubbing bubbles are released in your body and they start detoxifying the organs. So is that too little?
That's not enough time.
That's not enough.
The organs that play out first as we age are the endocrine system is the first one that plays out. And the second one that plays out usually is the liver. And the liver doesn't necessarily show up as hepatitis. It shows up as brain toxicity because the liver can't clear the toxins out. The toxins back up in the bloodstream. The bloodstream carries those toxins to the brain. The brain gets overloaded with toxins, then you get brain fog. Okay, so we need to be taking care of our endocrine system by sleeping from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. every night, not just some
9
night.
to 11. You
9
mean
to
9
11.
to, oh, that's for the endocrine.
Endocrine.
Yes.
Yeah, the endocrine glands.
Okay.
And, just think about it this way. What time, and even in the summer, what time is the sun completely down? It's usually down completely, gone by 9 p.m. So, if we didn't have electric lights, that's when we would go to bed. I was raised on a ranch in West Texas, and we didn't have electricity into the ranch until I was 17. So when it got to be sundown, dark, we went to bed because only other choice was to light up the kerosene lamps and smell that terrible smell while we did, played cards or played dominoes or something. And, it just wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
So we went to bed.
Wow. So Glenda asks if there's a name that you recommend for the canopy. I'm assuming that's what you're talking about, Glenda, is the canopy for the 5G, because you were the one that asked me about the question about 5G. So what do you think, Dr. Cowden? Is there a particular brand that's better?
Well, I'm not going to recommend brand names on this show or any other show.
Okay.
But if they'll go to the to the website that I said, lessemf.com, they have a variety of different brands that they can look there.
What's the website? The emf.com?
lessemf.com.
Less.
And they have a variety of different brands that you can choose from there. And so they're kind of like the Amazon of EMF store.
Very good. I'll check them out.
Okay.
Because I live in a condo, and when you shared that with Robert the last time you saw him, he, I was like, no, we can turn off I wanted to turn everything off. And he goes, but it doesn't matter. Everybody else's is on. And so I'm like, oh, so you were right. We had like 9 different, maybe five or six different Wi-Fi's around us. So, so we have to do the best we can. And that's why we focus on staying healthy. And before we go on, I want to acknowledge my sponsors. I'd mentioned this to Dr. Cowden. It is so important that I mention my sponsors, because without my sponsors, there would be no classroom. It is very difficult these days to, especially in these times, to, what's wrong with my, there we go. To be able to do what we're doing. And so I want to ask all of you to go to whenyouneedafriend.com, because we want to build as many people into the website so that we can continue to grow together. So go to whenyouneedafriend.com, subscribe. While you are there, please click on all the buttons for my social media and like and follow us there on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. Also check out my BitChute account, subscribe there, as well as YouTube. You never know, because we're being censored. And so with that, we want to be able to continue without skipping a beat if anything were to happen. This is information that is very life-changing information. So make sure that you stay connected with us. And while you're there at whenyouneedafriend.com, please check out my sponsors like Nori Nutraceuticals, and that is Nutritional Oncology Research Institute. Also, as well as Keep Me Safe Organics, and we're talking about 0 synthetics, 0 chemicals on your beauty products. First Alternative Care, the Pharmacy in Merritt Island, Live Longer Medical, making you as beautiful on the inside out, as well as we talked about First Alternative therapies that help us with our getting inflammation out of our body. Oh, no, not First Alternative therapies. What am I talking about? First Alternative, Avasia. I was talking about Avasia. I added that to that for my my affiliate program. So there's Avasia, ground therapy. That's what I meant to say. Ground therapy and brain tap. Brain tap taps into the brain and it helps you get your brain in balance. It's a wonderful way to meditate on steroids. And so please support our sponsors the way that they're supporting the classroom. And finally, you can become an enrolled student, and whether it's $1 or $1,000 a month, whatever you can donate, please keep us in mind when you have some extra money, or if you want to make a commitment, go to the enrolled student button and help us grow the show and the classroom together. And I also want to encourage you to go to drleecowden.com. That is his new website. So now there's a place where you can get a hold of him. That's DRLEE Cowden, COWDN.com. And
Yep.
so, Dr. Cowden, I know that I'd like to continue talking about all the different ways that we can build our immune system, but I really do want to talk about, you talked about the 5Gs and how we can be proactive as well to stop this from happening. I've already done it, and I'm hoping that everybody else that's listening today will do it too. But let's talk about the Medical Freedom Pack that you've started, medicalfreedompack.com.
Yeah, well, I didn't start it, but I'm working with folks that had this vision that we needed to have a voice in the federal government and a voice in the state governments. The political action committees that are in the United States right now, there aren't any for medical liberties or medical freedoms, and there needs to be. The largest medical pack the largest pack in the country is only about 2 million people. But I would think that 10 million or 20 million or 50 million people would want to become active in having a voice about their medical liberties, their medical freedom. For example, censorship. Right now, during this time, if you say something about the wrong word,
don't say it. Yeah.
Then it's going to be shut down.
Mhm.
You're going to get bumped off of Facebook. You're going to get bumped off of YouTube. You're going to get bumped off of all the other call them mega media places, and that's one of the first things that we want to address. Now, the other thing that we are very strongly supporting on the Medical Freedom Pack is what we call Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association is CSPOA.org. And this was an organization started by Sheriff Richard Mack out in Arizona. And he actually, for the benefit of the American public, took a court case all the way to the Supreme Court and won. The first case in the United States where a sheriff took on the government and won. And so he teaches the people how to have the right relationship with their sheriff, so that if there's some draconian, whimsical mandate that comes out, the person that would be enforcing that would be the sheriff.
Mm-hmm.
But the sheriff takes an oath of office that requires that they don't violate the constitutional rights of the people in their county. So that means that you can actually appeal to the rationale of your sheriff and say, Sheriff, this is not reasonable that I be locked in my house, that I be locked out of my business, that whatever the case is right now. You can actually appeal to the sheriff, and the sheriff has higher power than the federal government, than the state government, than the county government, or the municipal government. So the sheriff can outvote all of those.
Can they backfire? Can it backfire? And I know we have, this is a kind of a question maybe we can talk about after the classroom, but because we only have 2 minutes in the podcast.
Yeah. But what I want everybody to do is to sign up for the class. The class starts in 2 days.
Okay.
And it's a 6-week-long class. And it's all online. And the class is $295. And what I urge people to do is find 6 or 8 or 10 people that have a desire to learn this information, and you pool your resources. And $295 of your resources goes to pay for the ticket for the sheriff in your county to attend the class. And the other $295 goes to one of your group who's going to be the note taker for the group. And they're going to go to the class and take the notes and share the information with the rest of the people in the group. So that way we become knowledgeable about how to take back our freedoms, take back our liberties, not let the government steal them from us as they have been in the last few months.
Months?
Months.
It's been a while.
Long time, but I
It's
mean,
been a long time.
It's amazing how much additional loss of liberty we've had just since January.
Well, that's because they're trying to keep us safe, quote unquote.
Right. Yeah. Well, Benjamin Franklin says, if you give up freedom in order to have safety, you'll have neither.
It's true.
Okay.
That's right. And it won't come back.
No.
For people think, it'll come back.
Well, yeah, it can, but it's going to take a huge effort to get it back. And that's why it's so important to become active in the Medical Freedom Pack. There's no cost to joining the Medical Freedom Pack. It's completely free. And you'll receive an article in there that you'll be amazed at about the history of the loss of freedom in this country when you sign up to become a member. And you can actually say, I want to be a spearhead person for this particular focus of my medical liberty, my medical freedom, or I want to try to help this person get elected because they stand for what we stand for, and I want to try to get this other person kicked out of office because they're in it for the money and for the corporate greed and not for the people.
Well, speak a little bit about what would happen. Let's say someone like me, as a young mom, I probably, knowing what I know now as a young mother, if I had to deal with a child with cancer, I would opt for not giving the child chemo. But what happens today if a parent decides we want to, like Dr. Brzezinski is going to be in the classroom next month. I'm really excited about that. But let's say I choose to do something like that. What's going to happen to me?
Okay, if your child is seen by a doctor in the allopathic system and a diagnosis of cancer is made, then you just made the first huge mistake, because at that point then they have the right to call the Child Protective Services, who can legally kidnap your child from you and take the child to the hospital and force chemotherapy and radiation therapy and whatever else they want to on that child against your wishes and against the child's wishes. Okay. Now that is illegal. That is draconian. Well, no, it's not illegal. It is a color of law. Okay. It shouldn't be happening, but people need to stand up for things about, like that. That's just wrong. Shouldn't happen.
Yes, medical freedom is what you guys are working and focusing on, and I really do appreciate Dr. Cowden, everything that you do. For those of you who are just tuning in and just meeting Dr. Cowden for the first time, I want you to know that he teaches doctors. He's a teaching doctor on how to help the patient, not just body, but also spirit and mind, because there's illness is more than just a body or a disease. It's a whole component, spirit, mind, and body. And so Dr. Cowden has gone all over the world teaching doctors to use different tools and helping you get better and helping your body heal naturally as possible. Dr. Cowden, before we go, I was able to sneak an extra 5 minutes for us, but time has gone by since then. But what would you like? Because I would like to talk maybe after the podcast. And for those of you who are listening on podcast or BitChute or anywhere around the world, you're welcome to join us live at Facebook or YouTube. Just go to whenyouneedafriend.com to learn more. So to build today's topic, building our immune system during difficult times, what do you want to just last minute pearls that we can take with us to encourage us to build?
Well, we didn't hit some of the most important ones, which is cleaning up the diet, taking some supplemental nutrients. We know that every American is deficient in one or more nutrients. They're all deficient in magnesium. They're all deficient in vitamin C. They're almost all of them are deficient in vitamin D. A lot of them are deficient in zinc. So those are key nutrients that we should consider as supplements that will help keep our immune system strong and help to combat the
Mhm.
various illnesses that we get exposed to.
Yeah.
So that's a critical piece. And I think the other one that was important was the hydration.
Yeah.
So many people drink sodas and coffee and call that hydration, but those are all dehydrating substances. So you need to drink clean, purified water, 2 ounces every 15 minutes, every waking hour. You can stop 30 minutes before a meal and resume 30 minutes after a meal, but all the rest of the waking hours take 2 ounces every 15 minutes, and that will hydrate your cells, carry nutrients in, carry toxins out of your cells better than a big glass in the morning, a big glass in the middle of the day, and a big glass at the end of the day.
So that's 15 minutes, every 15 minutes, 2 ounces.
2 ounces.
And then you stop 20 minutes before dinner, or you eat?
Yeah, start 20 or 30 minutes before you eat, and then resume about 30 minutes after you eat. So that there's enough hydrochloric acid in the stomach to break down, the protein sufficiently to get a benefit from that.
Well, that's great advice. And Dr. Cowden, if we can talk after the class, we have our teacher's pet. So if you guys have any questions, please ask. Now, please remember, go to drleecowden.com if you have any questions. And I am so grateful to you, Dr. Cowden, for being so generous with your time and your information.
You're very welcome.
And for those of you, stick around, because after the podcast, we're going to ask Dr. Cowden some questions. And please remember, we'll be right here waiting for you. You have a choice. Exercise it. This is Lillian McDermott and Dr. Lee Cowden wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever. Good job.
The
Good
opinions and
job.
advice expressed on the Lillian McDermott radio show are intended for the individual callers and guests on the program and are presented to our wider audience solely for general educational purposes. Please act responsibly and consult personally with your own medical, psychological, or nutritional expert before taking any steps to improve your life.
Okay, Dr. Cowden. So we didn't go through the rest of the stuff, but let's talk about integrative medicine. You quickly talked about toxins in the body at the beginning. So we kind of talked about that already. Diet is so important. We've talked about that before. And those of you who want to learn more about Dr. Cowden has been in the classroom many times. As a matter of fact, he was the one that made me aware of breast implant illness. And because of Dr. Cowden holding my hand through this process, I was able to make the decision. It was a tough decision, but it was the right decision for me. And so I'm always grateful to Dr. Cowden for taking the time. I called him on the way to meet my doctor, and he was just so helpful. And so integrative medicine and the treatments that assist the building of our immune system. I really would like to, if you can spend a little bit, like 5 minutes or 10 minutes with us. Oh, you muted yourself again.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
I would say that a very important part of immune function is lymphatic function. Now, the lymphatics are little tiny vessels that carry clear fluid, or sometimes milky, dirty fluid, from our cells back toward the central circulation, so that those toxins that are in that fluid can be pumped through the heart, through the liver, gallbladder, bowel, into the toilet, or through the kidneys, urinary bladder, and toilet. Mm-hmm. And the lymph vessels don't have pumps. So the pump for the lymph system are the skeletal muscles around those lymph vessels. And so many people in the United States are couch potatoes. So you never see them twitch a muscle except to bring the beer up to the mouth. Okay. And so they have very severely clogged up lymphatic system. The two most lymph congesting of all foods are the most commonly eaten foods in the United States. Those are dairy products of any type. Doesn't matter whether it's from a cow, a goat, a sheep, a horse, a mule, a camel, or whatever, or gluten grains. Okay, so if you get rid of gluten grains and all dairy products, then your lymph system is going to work a whole lot better than if you continue to eat those foods. So get rid of those foods and then start moving, start doing a physical activity. It doesn't have to be like a really vigorous physical activity. It could be, like a yoga, tai chi type stuff, just stretching and twisting and moving and, that kind of thing. But those types of movements will help to get your lymphatic system going. the very best way to exercise the lymphatic system of the head and neck is by jumping rope or bouncing on a rebounder or pretending to jump rope. So if you're on a trip and you don't have your rebounder with you, you don't have your jump rope with you, then pretend to jump rope. The best way to exercise your lymphatic system from the neck down is by a chi machine, which is a box about the size of a big toaster oven that has a machine, a motor inside it that causes the cradles on top that are shaped like that to move side to side. So if you put that machine on the floor, lay down on the floor, put your ankles up on those cradles and turn the thing on, your ankles start moving side to side like that on the floor, and that motion wave starts moving its way up the body. If you have a variable speed device, usually the first speed that you turn it on is too slow, so you turn a little faster, a little faster, a little faster. Eventually the motion wave will get to the top of your head. If you turn it faster than that, then you feel like you're being whipped, so you went one speed too fast. You back it off one notch and watch that motion wave go from your ankle all the way to the top of your head every time that it moves. And so that's causing rhythmic contraction, relaxation of the skeletal muscles around your lymph vessels, causing a squeezing of the lymph fluid inside the lymph vessels back toward your central circulation. And so then the toxins get pumped out. I say that people that have a clogged up lymphatic system, their body is like New York City with the garbage collectors on strike. It's not a pretty picture. So the garbage collectors are off, doing their thing, and the people in the houses are still making garbage, carrying it out to the curb, and pretty soon it fills up the curb, the sidewalk, the street, the yard, and starts backing up into the houses. The houses are the cells, so the cells are getting really toxic. But you rehire the garbage collectors. That means that you get the truck back on the street. You put a blade on the front of the truck to plow the lymph vessels, to plow the stuff out of the street so they can gather up the garbage from the sidewalk and the street and the yard and put that in the truck and carry it back to the dump. And pretty soon the garbage is being dumped out of the houses onto the curb like it should be and carried away to the garbage dump regularly. So lymphatic system is really, really important and goes ignored for most part by all allopathic physicians as well as most of the population.
So Dr. Cowden, I thought that dairy was considered dairy from a cow. So when you're saying all dairy, you're also including goat and camels, as you said. So any animal that produces milk is considered dairy.
Yes, and has the chemical substances in it that cause a thick, sticky mucoid material to develop inside the lymph vessels. And so you want to stay away from those. Now you can use dairy substitutes like coconut milk or any nut milks. What I tell people is go to the store and buy some organic, unsalted, unroasted nuts and bring those home and put them into a blender about that deep, and then just barely cover it over with water, turn the blender on full speed with a lid on, and as soon as that's a liquid, then pour that through a strainer into a jar, a 1 quart mason jar, and then that jar has a lid on it and a label on it. The label says such and such milk made on such and such date. If you haven't used it within 7 days, then throw it away. So don't make any more than you would use in 7 days. And so you can have one day pecan milk, and the next day macadamia nut milk, and the next day cashew milk, and whatever you want. And it doesn't have all that other stuff in it like carrageenan and the calcium carbonate and whatever else they add to the store-bought milk product.
So what about you said to strain it, but when you strain it, what about all the nuts? Can you make a cheese with that?
Yeah. So you can what doesn't go through the strainer can either be put onto a bowl of all natural non-grain granola along with a little bit of the nut milk, or it can be made into a ferment. So you can make almond. You can make a yogurt out of any nut, just like they make almond yogurt. You've seen that at the store. Well, you can make it out of pecans or walnuts or macadamia nuts or
lots of
anything
recipes.
else.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
really
you just have to have a starter.
Yeah.
And so, and if you let it go further, then it becomes more like a cheese, like a cream cheese.
I love to make sour cream. So sometimes I do a walnut taco meat, or walnut taco meat for salad or whatever. And then I take the cashew, add lemon and ice, and I blend it, and it makes a wonderful sour cream. And you keep adding the ice until it makes that sour cream consistency. Take
Yeah.
what you want, add a couple module dates, and it tastes so creamy. It's like a wonderful like cream, like instead of buying Cool Whip or anything like that, it just makes such a delicious creamy added to a wonderful healthy dessert. We promote a whole food plant-based lifestyle in the classroom as well. So we have a comment that says, so get rid of they got rid of gluten, but they are addicted to raw organic dairy. What do you say about raw organic dairy?
Well, it's still mucoid producing, and so it causes the mucoid material to build up in the paranasal sinuses and the trachea and the bronchi, the airways, to build up in the lymph vessels throughout your body. So it's really better to not do that. When I tell people that have by the way, that there is truly an addiction to dairy, and most people don't understand that, but dairy products contain in them a natural substance called caseomorphone. Can you tell from the name what it would be like? Morphine, right? Caseomorphone.
Yes.
So it's addicting. Now, there's if you're looking for taste, you can there's lots of nut milks, coconut milk, almond milk, macadamia nut milk are all commercially available, and then you can, as I said, make your own nut milks in place of that. You can make yogurts, you can make ice cream from all those things. You don't have to have dairy to do that. Now, it comes down to, do you value your taste more or do you value your health more? Okay.
That's a great question.
Yeah. My belief is that my body is the temple for God's Holy Spirit to dwell in. Now, am I going to be a good steward over that temple, or am I going to be a bad steward over that temple? I choose to be a good steward, so I don't consume dairy.
Many people have, and I'm not saying this to talk about the one person who said that they were addicted to dairy, but many of us have this lack-minded, like, I can't live without my piece of pie or my piece of meat or my piece of cheese or my piece of dairy or my drink. But instead of thinking, instead of doing without that, is moving towards health. I want to get rid of diabetes, or I want to get rid of heart disease. I want to get rid of all these things and embrace health. So instead of getting rid of something that you love, you are embracing health, which is going to stay with you for the rest of your life. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah. And a lot of people think, well, I'm just going to give this up and I'm not going to have anything that I enjoy in life. Well, why does that have to be? I mean, find things that you enjoy. It doesn't have to be food. You don't have to replace a pleasure from food with another pleasure from food. It can be a pleasure from something else. Go have more sex.
There you go.
Assuming you're married. A lot of people make certain foods into idols. I mean, truly into idols, and the Bible is very strong about that. We need to be cautious about the idols that we choose.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, that's a great visualization, and one we can work on with ourselves. We need to be, I always say to people that I'm a self-cleaning oven. We need to really look at ourselves and say, okay, how do I clean the impurities out of my temple, out of my oven? And so it's very important that our mindset be. So let's just make this the last question for you, Dr. Cowden. How do we boost our our mental, our thought process, so that we attract peace into our life instead of looking at lack and what we don't have and what we giving up, or, what would be a good booster, an exercise? Because I know that you've done the finger, is it the right hand or I'm trying to remember, the two fingers.
Yeah. Use your right hand to hold your left index and thumb.
Yes, my left hand. Okay.
Yeah.
So what advice can you give us to boost peace in our mind, in our hearts?
Well, a lot of people are looking for peace in the world, but I don't think you're going to find it in the world. Peace comes from our relationship with the creator of the universe. Okay, true peace. And, if you focus on that and get peaceful there, then the world can't take away your peace, because it's in your heart and in your mind, and not in the world. You're not relying on something in the world to give you peace.
I love that. I love that. Well, Dr. Cowden, it's been a blessing to spend time with you today. I'm sure everybody else feels the same, and for generations to come once this video is available to them. And so thank you so much. I'm glad to see that you're strong and healthy and moving on to bigger and better things, and teaching more and more doctors how to be a good alternative healer of, so thank you so much for that and all the work that you do. And I'm looking forward to our next conversation. Now, please remember to go to Medical Freedom Pact, and that's PAC.com. That's medicalfreedompact.com. And then you can also go to CSPOA.org and start a group so that you can help your sheriff assert your rights as well. So Thank you so much for watching today. Dr. Cowden, you're an amazing man. I am so grateful to have spent this time with you.
Keep up doing what you're doing. You're doing a great job.
Well, thank you. You are too. Well,